Hello and welcome to a Bergkamp Wonderland and Arsenal podcast. I'm Gimli, and tonight my guests are... First up, he's ABW's producer and head button monkey. Nanu, it's Danny the GFP. Hello, Danny.
Hello, you cheeky monkey.
Yeah, I'm not too bad. How are you?
Very good.
Very stressed.
Well, no, I'm okay. I'm getting on with it.
I feel we should make some kind of sheep gag.
No, just move on.
Okay. Next up, after seeing Arsenal fail in the transfer market again, he's come here tonight with a wheelie bin full of Welsh justice. It's Jason Davies. Hello, Jason.
Hiya, mate. You right?
Yeah, not too bad. How angry?
Still not at all. Not at all. I'm just disappointed. Just very, very disappointed.
I'm sure you're not alone, mate.
Sad. Sad times.
It certainly is. Right then, next up, this man is a good friend of the show and someone you would have probably listened to on Tuesday's last podcast of the day. It's our friend, Goonerholic. Hello, Gooner.
Hello there, how you doing?
I'm not too bad at all. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. I just steered clear of any suspicious photographs online today.
Oh. My eyes are still burning. Could you genuinely tell by that I'm speechless because even
we'll explain that later.
The thoughts in my head, I'm burned. If anyone can remember when Rob Beckett was on, it's very similar to the picture that Danny sent to Rob Beckett, except this time it was a video. Don't ask, John. Just don't ask. Right. And finally, a very special guest who's joining us tonight for the second time. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for John Cross. Hello, John.
Hello. Thanks a lot for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Pleased to be with you.
Well, we wanted to get you on so many times, but we know you're such a busy bloke and, given us the time. And when Danny doesn't mess up the tech, I mean, we would have had more time with you, but I'm blaming the fat man over there.
Fair enough.
No, that's all right. I've got all the time in the world, don't worry.
Lovely stuff. Right, we'll kick off as usual then with our scores across the board and a loan watch. Over to Danny.
Right, there's no scores because I didn't look, but I know we lost one of the youths lost to West Ham and the other one's won because I forgot to write it down. But Jenkinson, West Ham suspended. Serge Gnabry, unused stub. West Brom beat Stoke 1-0. In the Championship, Damien Martinez, unused stub for Wolves as they beat Charlton 2-1. Ashley Maitland-Niles, Conservative. Surprisingly, Brighton continued their brilliant run and they beat Ipswich 3-2. And Maitland-Niles got a 5.7. Isaac Hayden and Chupa Chupa Apcom both played... Shut your face. Both played for Hull as they beat Swansea 2-0. Preston 2-0. Where have I got Swansea from? Oh, they're both playing white. Maybe that's what my brain's telling me. Hayden come on as a sub and got a 6.7. And Chupa Chupa played the entire game. Well, he might have got subbed off, but he started and got a 6.6. Super John Terrell, future Spain legend, maybe, beat MK Doms 2-0. He only got a 6.3, which is his worst of the season, but he's been brilliant, so that doesn't matter. Wellington Silva, he started, drew 0-0 with Blackburn, and he got a 6.6 down in the League One. Super Dan Crowley, as we all know, future England legend, they actually lost. Barnsley lost 3-0 to Rochdale. He came on as a sub. Well, there you go. He should have started and they would have won. Wojciech Szczesny for Roma, they beat Juventus, and Juventus continued their 100% loss record for the season. 2 games, 2 losses. Yaya Sanogo, as usual, Eva has been keeping us updated on this. She says, Ajax beat ADO Den Haag 4-0 earlier today. Arsenal's Yaya Sanogo was on the bench and did not play. Then up into Chile Jocko land, Gideon Zalem.
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Played for Rangers, who are topping the table as they beat Queen of the South 5-1. Now, I heard he got an assist, but Soccer Base says he didn't. So, other than that, I've got no idea.
Someone's lying, Danny. Someone's lying.
A lion?
No, lying.
Lying?
Yep.
Okay, then I'm just having a quick look at the youth results. Reading beat us 4-1, the under-18s, and some bloke whose name I'm not going to try and pronounce because I'll get shouted at. And then we beat West Ham under-21s 5-0, and the match news says that Hines got a goal. I think he's already scored this season. Mavidi got a couple. Kamara got, thank you very much, whoever that is bibbing, and Kamara got one, and Sheaf got the other in the 89th minute. So the under-21s are doing brilliantly, and I don't think anybody of the major first-team players were involved. Just going to have a quick look down. The new bloke, Ali Alier Mark II, however you say his name, he played, and there you go. That's it.
That's wonderful. I think with analysis like that, you could...
Dan Walker today would be a lot shorter.
You're going to be. Well, they have Fat Sam on there, don't they? So, I mean, if they ever look to, to make a large gap. I think
Yeah.
you could probably fill it.
And just a little bit of World Cup qualification. The mighty Qatar getting ready for World Cup, whatever they bribed to get, beat Bhutan 15-0.
Don't talk about international football. You'll get the Welshman going.
Top of the league, Jason?
See, hey, boys, we nearly scored against Cyprus. Have you seen Ashley Cole's been left out of Roma's Serie A and Champions League squad?
Don't say anything too mean. John's here. His bosses might hear. Oh, unlucky Ashley Cole.
No, I just said, just read it today.
That's poor form, that is.
Terrible. I really feel for him.
I'm gutted for him. I heard he sent him a bath pick as well.
Such a lovely man.
Right. First on the agenda, then, is our away trip to Newcastle. So who's going to talk us through this one? Who am I going to chuck under the bus? Go on, Davies. You can have first crack at this.
I just went on mute as well. Well, it was just one of those games, isn't it? We started off okay, I thought. They started off decently as well. And the boy Mitrovic, well, he's a class act, isn't he? I mean, if anybody needs therapy, it's him. Denied a perfectly good penalty shout. Was it the Ox who went over? Was it?
No, it was
Bellerin. Denied a perfectly good penalty shout. They made all sorts of excuses for Mariner. Maybe he thought it was Kieran Gibbs going over. I don't know. But after the Mitrovic sending off, we created enough. We just didn't finish it. I thought Walcott was poor in front of goal. I thought Ramsey did very well in the 10 slot. Our back four had nothing to do, but we couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. It was frustrating. It was a very frustrating game. I thought the Ox was poor on the day, but with his character and his effort and his intelligence, the boy's always willing to shoot. He got lucky when Colaccini stuck his leg out. And another own goal, our highest scorer for the season. It's pitiful, isn't it? But it was just a very frustrating, bitty game, wasn't it? They would have disgraced Newcastle on the day. Some of the challenges, I'm surprised another 2 players didn't get sent off. Some of the challenges were pretty poor, and I think Mariner bottled a couple of them because, there were definitely a few more yellows that he could have handed out. I don't know, I watched it. I re-watched the game because I was so annoyed at it the first time watching it. Yeah, I know. Yeah, bad decision. But, we created enough. We just profligate in front of goal.
I think the main talking point of this game is going to be the referee and the fouls and eventually, the sending off. From watching it, it seemed quite clear to me that Newcastle went out with a clear game plan, and that was to rough us up. But, obviously that doesn't necessarily always work because Chelsea have employed that game plan against us before and they pulled it off. I wouldn't say superbly because I thought there were a couple of genuinely bad tackles in there. But Newcastle just got it all wrong, didn't they, David? I mean, Sissoko should have walked? Because for me, that looked just as bad as the Mitrovic one and the Thauvin one that was after the Mitrovic one as well, where he went straight through the back of Coquelin. They were just 3 awful tackles, really, weren't they?
Yes, I think they were, but I think the guy that got... actually, Mariner, apart from the penalty, I thought, got all of the decisions absolutely spot on. I thought that the red card was rightly justified because it was studs straight down the front of the shin, whereas the others were foot, heel, they're not nice challenges, but they're not leg threateners, if you like. But the whole... their game plan was given away beforehand when he did the interview before the match, and he said, I've told my players that I want them to press Arsenal high up the pitch, make it uncomfortable for them for the first 10 minutes and get in their faces. Well, they kind of took him at his word, unfortunately. And you'd have thought after the red card they'd have stopped, but actually they carried on throughout the first half, didn't they? They ended up with 4 bookings by half-time.
Something like that, yeah.
And it was disappointing to see, not just at Newcastle, it happened in other Premiership games at the weekend as well. And luckily it looks as though the referees are clamping down on it, but the standard that are tackling is going backwards again.
And the other talking point for the game last week on this podcast, I think there wasn't a person on there that didn't call for Giroud to be replaced by Theo Walcott. Now, he got his chance against Newcastle. So, John, how would you assess his performance?
Yeah, I thought it was disappointing. Look, I'm a big Theo Walcott fan, actually, and I think he showed what he can do in two Wembley appearances recently, and it's all about pace and running behind the defences. And I think it's very much about when he's effective, when Arsenal are deep and they sort of almost play on the break and sort of play behind defences, and it should suit counter-attacking football, and I guess it should suit away performances. But it just struck me that on Saturday it really wasn't a typical away game, because it was Newcastle, because of that early sending off, who were sitting deep, who were actually sort of kind of manning the fortress, weren't they, really? And Arsenal were almost playing as if they were the home team. And I think it's that kind of difficulty that really didn't facilitate Walcott to be at his most effective. I like Walcott. I think he will score goals. I just think that at the moment he's looking for confidence, and I think Giroud is such an undervalued, underrated player. And we say this every time, don't we? And then we sort of say, oh, maybe it's time for him to be dropped. But you know what? I thought the biggest single factor for me that I really stood out to me about what Arsenal missed was Mesut Ozil. I just felt that actually sometimes you look at Ozil, and people, you know, who kind of don't see him regularly or don't see Arsenal regularly, just sometimes miss how valuable he is. He just keeps the ball ticking over. He keeps the ball sort of kind of going. He keeps the team purring. He's almost like, you know, Wenger's said he's like the oil in the engine. And I think that's spot on, because I think that Arsenal were a little bit disjointed, and he's the player that I think keeps them going. I think just a final thought on the referees and the officials. It was fascinating, you know, because I just did a little bit of TV work in the morning, and I was sort of coming home listening to the radio before I sort of sat myself down in front of the TV rather, and Danny Mills on the radio was saying how appalling the decision was to send off Mitrovic, and he got it completely wrong. Sit myself down in TV just after the red card had been issued, and TV says absolutely spot on. I'm with David. I think actually, funny enough, I think that Mariner actually had a good game. I know that's bizarre with the absolute stinker being the penalty decision, but I do think actually, if you think about it, I don't know what Newcastle were moaning about, because that was the key decision that he got wrong, and it was in their favour.
I think you also have to look at the Mitrovic challenge as well and say his foot went clean over the ball, which, you know, how can that be perceived as anything other than dangerous play? I mean, that's quite funny as well, John, that you said about Mesut Ozil. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you as well, do you think we would have seen a higher level of performance from Theo Walcott had Mesut Ozil have been in that game?
Without a question. I do think there's a link there, and I think that Ozil looks... And I love the way that he receives the ball just behind the front line, and then can look up, even from deeper really, and try to hit the quicker player. I mean, that should work, I think, better with sort of Sanchez as well than it perhaps has so far this season. I think that's more of a question of Sanchez not really being at his best yet after the internationals. But I do think that's kind of a bit of a wasted opportunity there for Theo, and Theo will probably come away thinking, actually, I wish Mesut had been playing, really, because I don't think Theo did himself justice one little bit. It's funny, isn't it? I mean, you know, Walcott is now perceived, I think, in the dressing room and by the coaching staff as solely a central striker. And I think he's got to learn and prove himself very quickly to justify that standing, I think.
So, with that said, do you ever think that we might see Theo Walcott played on the wing again?
I think we should do. I think we should do. I think he should be, and I think he's adaptable and willing to do that. I think sometimes a player can be caught between two stools and sort of almost become a bit too versatile. But you know, I think Arsenal sometimes miss that bit of pace on the right. I think Ramsey does a job there at the moment, and I think the team looks a little bit lopsided. I was so pleased to see Oxlade-Chamberlain come back in, and I think the reason perhaps he wasn't sort of at his best purely because he hasn't played or started a couple of games in a row. I'm a massive Oxlade-Chamberlain fan. I think he offers balance, but I do think that Walcott can also offer that balance. And I think it would be wrong to say, Walcott, you're never playing on the right again, because I think the team would probably miss his place and kind of the way he gets in behind the fullback so effectively on occasion from the right-hand side.
And Danny, I'll come to you next. And John spoke about Ox there. One of the things that you'll remember from the last podcast we did before transfer deadline day was we all said that Ramsey shouldn't play on the wing. Ox should be playing there against Newcastle. Now, he's had the opportunity. What do we make of his performance on that day? Did you think he had a good game? Of course, you know, it was his shot that rebounded in for the goal. But I think Jason's got strong views on this one. So let's hear what you thought of his performance on the day.
Well, I look at it from the point of view that if I was a defender playing against the Ox, I would be very worried indeed, because he's got the pace to turn anyone inside out. He's not worried about having a shot at goal, and he can drift into where Ramsey was playing because his old man says that's going to be his best position. He could drift up front, and he is just such... I mean, you saw the goal that he scored in the Charity Shield against Chelsea. It was absolutely brilliant that day. Some say it might have been a fluky goal. Personally, I think that this goal maybe should have gone down as an Oxlade goal because the direction of the ball was still going in, whether anyone touched it or not. But that's for...
So I thought it was going wide. Put hand on heart, I honestly thought that ball was going wide had Colaccini not touched it.
It was going wide. That's where they gave us a Colaccini goal.
Oh, well, the angle I saw it at, I was not maybe close, taking enough look at it. But the thing I like to look at is the progress throughout this season. That game, we had the highest number of the highest amount of possession all season with 69%, our highest pass success ratio of 92%, our highest number of shots on goal with 22, with shots with 22, and on target highest of 9, highest number of corners with 9, the most touches 924. And the most number of completed passes, 713 out of 778. So I think all the stats, which is what a lot of managers go by, are showing that game on game we're getting better and better and better. And if it wasn't for the fact that in the Newcastle goal, old Krul got an 8.5, yet again the curse of when people play Arsenal, their goalkeepers have the game of their lives. I mean, Newcastle got 5 bookings and a sending off in the first 50 minutes because they knew that maybe one of the only ways to stop us is to kick us. And Mitrovic should have definitely gone off for that. People were ringing up at 5 Live going, oh, football's a contact sport. Yeah, not like that it isn't. He knew what he was doing and he did it on purpose. And then I was just hoping it was going to rain and we would have seen poor old matey boy getting his umbrella out and we could have all had a bit of a laugh at that. But I think that we should have easily beaten them 4-5-0. They've had so many whoopings off of us. I mean, they've not beaten us for ages. I did read, I think after the game when we did the radio show, I think I can't remember if I was on it or not, but I remember looking at the stats and thinking that they haven't beaten us absolutely ages. And they are probably worried about getting a beating, and they looked like they were going for the draw, going for a 0-0. Because unfortunately, Newcastle aren't that much of a good team at the moment. They've got a lot of new players settling in, a new manager. But yeah, I think it's onwards and upwards. So we've got lots of players playing quite well. I think that the key to, like going back to your question, the Ox needs an extended run on the right wing and to work, because having that combination of a right winger and a right back, you need to be able to know that if one goes forward. That's why Bellerin hasn't done that much this season, because when Ramsey plays there, Bellerin can't attack too much because Ramsey isn't over on the right hand side. So it takes a while for the right winger and the right back to build up an understanding where one goes forward, the other one drops back a little bit. And then with that, I think those two, with the pace they have, all left backs in this country are going to be absolutely murdered this season if those two manage to work out a system.
And David, I'll come to you next. The question I want to ask is, if you're an outsider looking in, say whether you're an Arsenal fan that didn't catch the game or you're a fan of a rival club, and you look at the hard facts, Arsenal have won 1-0 with an own goal against a team with 10 men. Is there more to it than that?
I think you've got to give some... the credit isn't the word, but you have to say that Newcastle, after the sending off, had the obvious intention, it seemed, of not having their goal difference be made much, much worse. I don't think they had any intention of doing anything other than making a 0-0 out of that for as long as they could. You could see the 2 banks of 4, one poor old soul up front who Koscielny and Gabriel had in their pocket all afternoon. And even when we scored, they didn't break out of that. It was as if suddenly the mindset was, well, the 0-0's gone, let's not let them murder us. And I thought for a home team, they lacked any ambition whatsoever. But that may be the reason that they're thinking come the end of the season, goal difference is going to be important to them. And I have to say, having seen what they had to offer on Saturday, it's not a surprise that they and Sunderland are the bottom 2.
No.
Gim.
Yes.
Just to back up what David was saying there, Newcastle total shots 1, corners 0, possession 31% for a home team. That's worrying if you're a Newcastle fan.
But is it not more worrying as an Arsenal fan to not think, well, why didn't we, like you said, just hammer them? Jace?
Sorry.
Go on, Danny.
Oh, okay, just a quick one. Like, you can look back in the Rothmans football yearbooks in a decade's time and that'll have a little like I say, that'll have a W next to that game, and that's all I'm worried about.
No, very true. Jace, if you want to crack at that one.
Yeah, I just think, Oxlade-Chamberlain's coming back in the team. I love him as a footballer. I think he's got a cracking attitude. He's brave. He's got everything, but he tries too hard. He needs to learn to relax. Sometimes take the easy option. It's not a case of head down and charge all the time. It's utilise your options, make the defender think a bit more. That's in his case. I think Ramsey playing the 10 role, of course, that's going to change things slightly. I'd have felt more comfortable with Ramsey at 10 if Giroud was up top, because they kind of work well off each other. Theo missed a couple of gilt-edged chances. I think Theo's a talented boy, but he's a talented man. But all too often, he doesn't take the chances he should. Now, whether that's whether he, in other people's opinion, he bottles it or he has too much time to think about it, I don't know. I can't get inside his head. But there's a couple of goals going begging for you there. Krul had a great game, and Sanchez is off form. There's not a lot you can really add to it. We're the architects of our own misfortune, so to speak. The boys need to get back together after the international break, really knuckle down and work at it. But we've created enough. Oh, by the way, oh no.
By the way,
sorry, Wales just had a goal. I meant disallowed, I think.
So,
sorry, I do apologise.
The one Walcott chance that pretty much stood out for me is the one where Sanchez had a long-range shot and Krul spilled it. John, if Walcott is playing, say, 3 or 4 games in a row and he's getting some match time under his belt, is he burying that one? Or do you think, we still end up with the same product? Because everyone that I've seen, the Match of the Day pundits, people on Twitter, most people that I speak to on a daily basis have said to me that Walcott is not a centre-forward and he should not be playing as one.
Look, I think if he has played off the back of 3 or 4 games and his confidence is higher and he's sharper and maybe he's onto it a millisecond quicker and he puts it in the net, I do think that it winds me up sometimes when I hear sort of kind of, intelligent people sort of in pundits saying he hasn't got a football brain. And I mean, blimey, I don't know what a football brain is because, he's been in the game for so long. I do think that's rather harsh on him. I think that the difference now is definitely, and I know this sounds bizarre because he's obviously in his mid-20s and he's England international and been playing for Arsenal for a long time, is that he is almost learning that centre-forward role. And if he's dipped in and out of the team, then I don't think it helps anyone at the moment. I do think that there's so many similarities between him and Henry, for example, because Henry did come and sort of was, almost a winger at first, really. And I think when he came, he quickly slotted into the middle and did do a certain amount of learning on the job, if you like, really, to become one of the best and certainly the best of his type in the Premier League. I do think he's got potential to score goals because of his pace. And I do think sometimes maybe he thinks when he's got too much time to think about it, then he misses. But I do think he can be a good finisher. And I think if you look at his record, even from the flank, sometimes he's offered sort of kind of 12 goals a season. I think he could get up to 18, 20 if he does get a regular run of games. But he does need that regular run of games, I think, to kind of get into the groove and really make that position his own and also form an understanding with his teammates.
Yeah, of course. And with the news that is reaching us today that Danny Welbeck looks set to be out for considerably longer than we would have expected, I think, have they quoted until November, or have they not quoted a time, Danny?
Well, I think they said around Christmas time, but then Raj and Fife were talking in the group, and they said it's more like February, March time. So you never really can tell, can you? Nobody really knows other than Arsenal, and Arsenal aren't going to let out that kind of information.
No, you should state there that Andrew and Raj have said that because you've got to take into account that, of course, he's kind of come back into training. He's got to get his match sharpness, and, you know, by the time he's in the team and he's in with a shout of first-team football, being 100% fully fit, you know, I mean, you've got to add on those extra months, haven't you?
Certainly do. Just looking at the Arsenal site, no, just saying that he's got a knee injury, and it says the striker has been working throughout the summer to recover from the injury sustained at the end of April, and I think they haven't updated their site because it's another injury on top of that.
No, and we mentioned Mesut Ozil being out. Can anyone give us any reason as to why or length of injury time he's going to be out?
The only thing that was said on the day was that Arsene said it would only be for a week. It was only a minor knock, but your guess is as good as mine. So that was kept under wraps, and probably for a reason.
So because he was being sold, wasn't it?
No, I actually read someone on Twitter, right, and this is straight up. Someone said that Ozil wasn't injured, right? He had been dropped because he was having relations with Arsene Wenger's daughter. That is what someone had put on Twitter.
Well, Physio Room says that it's a knee injury, just a minor injury, according to Arsenal, and he's due back the 4th of September, which is tomorrow.
Yeah.
So at least he's not playing for Germany, so that's a good thing.
We're nearly close to drawing a line under this one then. But is there anything else anybody wanted to add, maybe that we've not discussed so far regarding the Newcastle game?
Oh, I'll tell you what, I'll just throw in there, I thought that Gabriel was Arsenal's best player. I thought he was terrific, and I just think that he... I do think he's got lots and lots of potential. If we are thinking that maybe sort of Mertesacker in the next season or so, or like two, is probably going to be sort of kind of playing less games and maybe faded out a little bit, I do think that Gabriel's just got everything to be really a regular player. I thought he was terrific even against Liverpool in a shambolic defensive display. He's combative, he's quick. And I think he's excellent. I think he'd be a really, really good signing. Big one for the future, and I think he showed that at Newcastle.
So, I agree with that 100%.
Sorry, guys. I mean, am I the only one who thinks when the ball's in the air, he just doesn't know what's happening initially? There's a few times now he's been caught really badly short when the ball's in the air. I think he's a talented lad, yes. But I wouldn't throw all my eggs in that basket at the moment.
No. The main question is what John alluded to was, where do you see Mertesacker's Arsenal career maybe going backwards and Gabriel's going forwards? Do you think he gets eased in over a period of time, or do you think it takes Mertesacker to have a shocker for Gabriel to be given that run? Because after all, Bellerin was given that run, and look, he's made that spot his own. I'll go
the Newcastle game's hardly a fair thing. They had nothing to do at the back, did they?
No.
And who knows, time will tell, won't it? I mean, he's undoubtedly a talent, as the boys have said. Undoubtedly. But I think he's got a lot to work on his game at the moment.
No, I think he's... I don't know whether the reports we said on the Deadline Day podcast about how his English is coming along. John, you might know, being close to Arsene Wenger and the team. I mean, how is Gabriel's English? Is he learning it? Because last time I heard,
he is learning it. He was doing double sessions last time I heard. Because he didn't. I mean, some players who play in Spain, kind of come over and do speak some English because it's obviously, just another European country, and you sort of maybe, they can expect. But apparently, he came over and didn't speak a single word, and it was really difficult. I mean, really difficult, didn't understand at all. And so I do think that it still needs a little bit of work. But listen, I think he's a really good player. My only slight concern was I always thought that Vermaelen and Koscielny didn't work because they were both on the smaller side, and that would still be a concern. But like Koscielny and Gabriel, but I still think that Gabriel's got a big future. And that's not in any way to write off Mertesacker, but we just got to accept that basically you just need a squad. I mean, we're all going crazy about the strikers. And so I just think throughout the period of the season, you're always going to, get games. And I think Gabriel will get increasingly more games because I think he's shown in the last couple that you can really trust and count on him.
So where do you go then? Do you see this season that he gets gradually eased into the team?
Yeah, I think so. I wouldn't say particularly because someone's being dropped as much as I just think there will be openings. Last season, I couldn't believe the amount of games that frankly, in the end, Koscielny and Mertesacker actually ended up playing together, bearing in mind that Mertesacker had a grueling World Cup campaign summer. And then Koscielny obviously had that sort of knock-on effect of his sort of long-running Achilles thing, but they actually ended up being solid as a rock, really. And I think that Gabriel will get games, and I think it will be over the course of a time, rather like Bellerin. It will just be him competing with Mertesacker. I like Mertesacker. I think he's always particularly good, particularly at home, because I think he's just that much more commanding and brings the ball out. But I think away from home, I think sometimes Gabriel's extra pace and kind of power of recovery might actually lead to Arsene Wenger sort of changing up from time to time and bringing in Gabriel. And I think that on those sort of rare occasions, I think is when you sort of kind of put down a marker for your long-term prospects and sort of win a place more regularly.
No, exactly right, and very well said. With that said, then, we'll move on from the Newcastle game, and we'll go to our next segment, which is a Q&A with tonight's special guest, John. John, may I ask you some questions?
Of course.
Fantastic. Right, I'll start off then. I see you have a book coming out, and that it focuses on Arsene Wenger. So can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, no, I'd love to. It is, called Arsene Wenger, and it's the inside story of Arsenal under Wenger. And it's very specific, really, and it's about Arsene Wenger and his time at Arsenal, really sort of focusing on that. The sort of the club that he took over, the atmosphere then, what he was like, I guess, sort of then, and how he progressed through his early sort of career, and then how he sort of moulded Arsenal. And I think sort of the early, obviously, focused so much on kind of the changes that he made to win the double 98. And then sort of that progression towards the Invincibles, of course. And then I just think you go into a period of time where you sort of focus on very much on the kind of the stadium rebuild and what he's got to play with, and sort of kind of allude to the fact that he's sort of almost become accountant as much as manager. And I do think that perhaps doesn't get the respect often it deserves. But I do think there's chapters there on kind of his relationships with the press, for example. I think sort of kind of, also, I don't know, sort of kind of training and tactics, for example, and that sort of thing, and what he's like as a coach and as a manager and as a visionary, if you like. And I just think, hopefully it will give people a bit of an insight, into the man as well, and sort of characteristics, because he is a very private individual. I find him very entertaining, very funny. I always think he's very good company. He can be snappy. He can be angry. I think you take him for what you get, actually, as a football coach. I think no one was complaining when it was total football and Arsenal winning trophies. When they're not winning trophies and not winning games, it's Arsenal's naive tactically, which I just don't see. But because I just feel that Arsene Wenger is very much a free-flowing football manager. He puts the onus on his players to go and win games. I think that has made Arsenal very, very entertaining. Sometimes they'll lose games doing that way, and sometimes they'll lose games badly doing it that way. But I think the last couple of seasons have shown that I think Arsenal have emerged from the other side of the stadium, spending a bit more money, wish they'd spend even more money, and on a sort of kind of an upward spiral again. I've got a great deal of respect. He's not without his failings, and you can't mask those, and the book certainly doesn't hide away from those. But, I do think that people, should remember that he is Arsenal's, I think, greatest ever manager, most successful manager. And I do think hopefully it paints a rounded picture of the man and the manager.
Yeah, of course. I mean, he is such a fascinating character, and I think every Arsenal fan has their own perceptions of him. Whether it's to the way he manages the players, people say that, when we lose or we play badly, he doesn't shout at the players in the dressing room, which, a lot of people have a problem with. But I mean, I guess it's just his style of management. The other thing that I want to...
On that, it's very interesting you say that, because I've actually got a lot of players talking about exactly that, about his dressing room manner and behaviour. And actually they say that really it is so, you've got to take it in both ways. And so basically, when they're losing at half time, for example, it's, he will wait often and find the right time for when the player is receptive. And it's more about saying little, but making it straight to the point. And that often gets the results. And then after, as you say, a result when everyone is disappointed, rather often wait, I think, let the players breathe it in, take it in, feel that disappointment, and then hold the team meeting afterwards at the training ground. I've got various players talking about his kind of dressing room behaviour, and honestly, I think to a man that they would say, actually, even though people find it, strange, that sort of behaviour, that it actually comes out the other side very positive, and that's a very familiar thing throughout the book.
Mm. And you say there you've had access to the players and the opinions of the players in the book. Just how much access did you have to the great man himself?
No, I mean, he hasn't. I mean, he knows it's sort of coming and I'm doing it. But to be honest, it's more about more people talking about him and what he's achieved, because I'm very conscious of the fact that he particularly didn't want a biography, and that's something that I've been kind of eager and sort of, pleased to respect. And it's more of about kind of people talking about him. I see him a lot, and kind of, I get on well with him. We do have a good relationship, and he's always very friendly and sort of kind of respectful. Listen, everyone has ups and downs in life. We'll have little rows and spats from time to time, but generally we get on well. But no, the intention was always kind of to be about other people giving an insight. And behind the scenes, I hear bits and pieces, obviously, and things, and which are very relevant to the book. I obviously quote him extensively from our press dealings and things that I hear, and so it's more of a case of an insight into him rather than him kind of really sort of how should I put it, sort of bending over backwards to give it huge access. Really, it's more about opinions on him, and people are really sort of kind of very have been very generous with their time and their views. Really, so some of the former players have been absolutely fascinating about him.
Yeah, of course. And I can imagine with access to so many people who have either worked with him or worked around him, you probably have some funny anecdotes in that book. Can you, off the top of your head, maybe give us one or an extract or anything of the like?
Well, I tell you, one of the I've spoken to quite a few managers about him, and sort of one of the ones that I kind of spoke to was Sven-Göran Eriksson, who was very, very sort of close to Arsenal. And it's almost like, it made me laugh, because I did sort of say, look, to Sven, that there was often a theory. I think when would it have been? It would have been about 2000, 2001. There was this theory that David Dean, who was obviously moving a shaker at the FA, went after Sven because he didn't want to lose Arsenal to the FA, because he was the FA's number one choice. And Sven was really sort of laughing about this, so he talks quite nicely about that. But I think there's lots of... hopefully I can sort of kind of provide a little bit of insight into also things about how perhaps close he came to leaving at various points. Sort of, I think he's obviously a very, very wanted man. His kind of views on music, I think he's quite a good dancer. And I just think he's a man also sort of, he honestly, at some press conferences, he really keeps us entertained with sort of laughing and joking and sort of little, sound bites that he does. and he's quite entertaining, really. I do think he's sort of politically, I think he's probably more left than right, but it's so difficult to tell, because obviously, he's in an industry which is so cash rich that kind of you think that's sort of almost socialism. And I think he obviously has talked about kind of trying to run the dressing room on a socialist level in the past. That kind of goes out the window in football, doesn't it, really? So, so many people talked about him and been so respectful about him. I love some of the stuff about his sheer clumsiness. I think Ray Parlour talks well about this, as do a couple of the former players, about him, how he just completely, how he sort of kind of will get sort of kind of, the zipping up of the coat and struggles with that is just sheer beginning. Walking into a huge glass door with all the players looking at him at lunch, because he just didn't see it, and just, he goes to sit back down and they're all laughing at him, and kind of goes to pick up a bit of dessert after sort of one players meeting and sort of turns away from the dessert and sort of immediately drops the dessert on the floor, returns to his table with an empty plate. It's just typical kind of, clumsiness for such an intelligent man. He's incredibly clumsy. So hopefully it's just a few sort of silly anecdotes really about kind of, hopefully it's a side that other people might not see. But generally, I think also it's just kind of, paints a picture of just how clever he is, I think. And I think in years to come, I think even the Arsenal fans who are perhaps a bit bored and fed up with him and think it's time for change will look back upon this time and say, we were part of the greatest era ever, and the man that oversaw that was Arsene Wenger. As I say, I think some of the criticism will come in the sort of the way he sort of sets up teams and the tactics. And, I think people perhaps can make their own judgment on that, because there's certainly a sort of a section dedicated to kind of the fans and how he's perceived by the fans. And I've spoken to several people about that. So hopefully it will kind of give both sides and be balanced.
Yeah. I mean, after hearing your analysis and a little bit about the book, I'm absolutely chomping at the bit to read it. So, would you be able to tell the listeners where we can buy it and what date it will be out?
Yeah, published, due for publication on the 17th of September. It is actually, I've got if people are nearby, then I've got a little book launch at the Tollington Arms on that evening from 6:30 onwards, actually. But it's available there. It's published by Simon & Schuster for £20, I think. And I believe it's also kind of, available sort of via Amazon and bookshops, and sort of it will be out on the Kindle, I think. So yeah, really looking forward to it. It's my first ever book, so treat me gently. But so I'm kind of excited about it, really. It was a very, it took me a long time. It was over a long period of time. And actually, I kind of, it's probably a bit too personal, this, but I actually kind of, last May, I lost my dad, who sort of kind of was really an inspiration to me in football and sort of introduced me to Arsenal and sort of kind of, and into my love of football, and kind of died at a very, sort of quite suddenly, and sort of, I don't know, sort of really made me think about things, and kind of, sort of I was writing that book at this time, and made me sort of maybe appreciate, I think sometimes just how sort of kind of, you should enjoy football and enjoy those times. And I think sometimes football is sort of a really sort of a precious thing, even when you're sort of, a bit down in the mouth and kind of depressed about things. And I think sort of writing that book and kind of bringing back sort of memories, I think actually was quite therapeutic for me. So I do hope people sort of enjoy it as well as I much enjoyed sort of and found it a bit of a comfort. Writing it through a bit of a difficult time.
I'm sorry to hear about your loss. I mean, you say about writing it around that time. Roughly how long did it take you to put all of it together from start to finish?
It started as something completely different, and it started as, and I must say that I really like Danny Taylor's book, This Is the One, and that's about a kind of a season or two with Manchester United and Sir Alex Ferguson. And I think that sort of offers a sort of an insight into what Fergie is like as a manager, how he sort of deals with the press, as I say, you know, there's a chapter on sort of kind of dealing with the press with Arsenal, and I think people sometimes perhaps don't sort of see him from all sides, and I think that's that started off then. It evolved with a new publisher actually into a bit more of a rounded picture of Arsene Wenger, rather than just a sort of a diary of a season, if you like. And I think it kind of went on from there. But I would say on and off for about a good 18 months, even a little bit more. It is extremely time consuming to go and see lots of people and interview lots of players and former players and managers and get a hold of all sorts of people, really, sort of a couple of former board members and, you know, lots of people really, really helpful to me. A few journalists, a few TV people, nice sort of anecdotes, you know, there, and hopefully a bit of an insight, really. So it is very, very time consuming, and I have to say that doing it around my job as well, which is all time consuming, would, you know, did take an incredibly difficult, you know, a long amount of time. It was very, very difficult to squeeze in.
Yeah, I've got a few questions here from, of course, the people that are involved with the podcast, and then I will open it up to the panelists on here tonight. But the podcast member Chris asked, I know you said about not maybe speaking with Arsene Wenger, but he says, when you were speaking with Arsene to write the book, did you ever feel he held anything back or carefully thought about his answers as he would in a presser, or do you truly believe that everything was from the heart and the direct reactions to the questions put before him?
Well, I always feel with Arsene that he'll never duck a question. I think he always tries to steer it back towards football. I always find it the most entertaining is when we sort of start talking about music or politics or kind of whatever it might be. Just because, you know, I mean, like, I always find it take people out then where you normally expect to see them, you know, and so kind of I normally expect to see Arsene Wenger on the touchline. And so Arsene Wenger telling us about the first time that he went to Highbury to get the job and he got the tube, and no one recognised him and I just found that fun. I just find it funny basically because it's just you don't expect to see it. I mean, you just don't see that anymore. I must say, even when I was sort of like, you know, sort of years ago, sort of in the early 90s, I would run into coaching staff on the tube. And kind of, I think I've even run into Dick Law on the tube, you know, so it's just, you know, people do still get the tube, but you just don't expect to see a megastar manager on the tube, really. And so kind of, I like that sort of kind of, the fact that you sort of kind of do that, you know, so it's, I do think that sometimes he's guarded with what he says. And I think sometimes he's more open than others. He often drops into conversation, I will tell you the full story one day. And I think that's at that point you think, there's a story behind this. You're never going to tell us that story one day, but there's something here that I really want to find out about. Never more illustrated, I think, than kind of his sort of kind of almost puzzling comments about when Arsenal signed Danny Welbeck. And he sort of basically said, if I was in the country, and kind of we wouldn't have signed Danny Welbeck, you know. And what does that mean? You know, he went obviously away to Rome, to the Vatican, and met the Pope, you know. But it's a strange one, really. So he's often sort of a little bit cryptic, and hopefully, I think sometimes we get to the bottom of that in the book.
Yeah, an international man of mystery. The final question from podcast member Andrew before I open it up to the rest of the guys. And you'll have to excuse me for this one because it's a bit of an epic. But Andrew asks, with Arsenal now going into each season 1 or 2 players short every year, and there being a different excuse every year, is it clear proof Arsene Wenger is unable to adapt to the rapidly changing yet admittedly barking mad dynamics of modern football? I'll go on. The annual excuse would suggest to me that each year something different leaves him behind, which he is either unable to forecast any hedge or adjust to any longer. So, John, your thoughts on that? If you can break that down.
Yeah, I do think that's a really interesting point, because I do think that there's no doubt about it in my mind that it was a wrench, I think, for him to enter a new era and a new world of megastar signings. Clearly, I think that in that summer of 2013, wasn't it? When basically they went for Suarez, I always got the impression that this really troubled Arsenal. And I always got the impression that perhaps, the board would have wanted him to go higher, but the very fact that they bid 40 million and £1, I think probably sat with Arsenal because that's his maximum valuation. And I think that sort of kind of paying 42 was a reaction and a response to kind of fans baying for a new signing as much as anything. I think it has troubled Arsenal because I think that he wants to be kind of shown as self-sufficient. He believes in that model. And I think sometimes he will, like, for example, this window just gone. We can talk all day about kind of which strikers they should have signed. And, there's no doubt in my mind that they did inquire about Benzema. I don't think it ever came as close as some people thought it really did. I really don't. Cavani, I think, is another one. But, frankly, if Louis van Gaal wanted Cavani, I think he could have gone to PSG and paid £50 million for Cavani. I think Arsenal could have done that. But is that really wise? 28 years old, £50 million, you are not going to get a penny of resale value. Now, a lot of fans will say, well, we pay the biggest ticket prices in Europe, and I get that, and I understand that, but you will not convince Arsene Wenger of that. And I do think that, therefore, in answer to that question, well, I think that's your answer, really, in a way. But I do think he's coming more round to it. And he does see that basically Arsenal are rich and they have got reserves. It doesn't worry him, but I think, about spending big, but I think the player still has to be right. And I do think he still kind of can't get his head around it. Someone in the book compares it, Arsene Wenger's evaluation in the transfer market to buying a watch. And it's like a man going into the jewellers and saying that, how much is that watch? £2,000. Well, it can't be £2,000 because it, didn't cost that much to make it. So he said, well, the price is £2,000. Do you want it or not? And so he said, well, no, because, it cost £1,000 for the craftsman and the labour £500. Why isn't it £1,500? And that is so typical, I think, of Arsene Wenger. He wants to pay so much and just so much for a player, and he is, he wants to be in charge and he wants to oversee everything, and maybe he's sort of kind of too controlling. But I do think perhaps, I think he has loosened as far as transfers go, and I think arguably he probably needs to loosen even more, I think, to kind of make, everything work, because the money is there and it shouldn't, I don't think, weigh on his conscience, because the fans have paid it, they want the money. And I'll be honest with you, I think the bigger miss this summer was not signing Morgan Schneiderlin. I think they should have done that. And again, I think that was partly, not solely, but partly down to the fact, a couple of classic Arsene Wengerisms, that basically suddenly the price went a little bit too high for him, so he doesn't like to overpay. And also, it blocks off a younger player, Francis Coquelin, which again is a classic Arsene. So, if you want to kind of look at why Arsene Wenger is still a little bit reticent in the transfer market, I would look at that one as much as the strikers, because honestly, who are you going to sign as a striker? I know people don't want to hear this, but if your aim is ultimately to improve the squad every time, then I'm not sure that any striker out there was attainable that would have hit that target and improved the Arsenal squad.
I think on that sense that, if you're asking the fans, I don't think the fans would have minded had he gone out and paid 50 million for an Edinson Cavani, even at 28, because I think it gives someone, if you look at, and to coin a phrase, to say the Mesut Ozil effect, it gave a boost to the fans, it gave a boost to the players. I think sometimes you got to look at things at more than money, and if it's a case of paying maybe a little bit over the odds, I think he needs to adjust to that philosophy. I don't
disagree with you. I think I agree with you. I do think it's going to trouble his conscience to do it. But I just feel that in this day, you can't deny the fans that are sort of paying a lot of money to see it.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think it's the case of there's a lot of people out there that say that maybe football has moved on and he's maybe not. And I think that maybe that's kind of a fair analysis after listening to what you say and saying that, you know, maybe these players were available, but just not at the price that he was willing to pay. I mean, he commented on a Martial deal, didn't he, to Manchester United, saying, you know, look at the transfer market and the state of it. But I think in today's football, or in modern football, so to speak, there's so much money going into the game that maybe you have to take that gamble by paying over the odds for players.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I agree with him on Martial, you know. That's crazy money. That's crazy money.
It is crazy money. I'm going to open it up then to the rest of the guys on the show. Now, John, I know John is running very short of time, but I've asked him so many questions. But you boys, just go for it. So who's up first?
Mind if I go with it?
Oh, yeah, crack on, Dave.
Okay, well, actually, I had 4, but John's answered 2 of them anyway, so it's only a couple of quickies.
Sorry, it's me rabbiting on too long.
Yeah, that's great. I have no problem with that. John, you were mentioning there, and you're not the only journalist that I've heard say this before about Arsene being entertaining, good company. Some have gone further and said that he'll always give you a story. You've always got something to write about when you come away from a presser or a private interview with him. Do you think, and it's not just him, by the way, but do you think the fact that people like he and Jose Mourinho, and if you look back in the past, Alex Ferguson, Harry Redknapp, the guys who do make your job perhaps a little bit easier, journalists tend to treat them a little more gently than they would, say, a younger manager or a manager at a club who aren't as accommodating as the Arsenals and the Chelseas are of this world?
Without question. And I do think, and I make no apology for this, and people might say, oh, you know, it's just because he's nice to you. It's not that. It's more of a case of, I think if you basically, I think if you've got that twinkle in your eye as a manager, you know that the press are after something, and basically you serve up a line, as we call it in the trade, then basically subconsciously or consciously, you're going to have a little bit more time and respect for that person. Look, I always make this kind of thing that basically it's always more difficult to criticise someone that you like. And I think you think twice about doing it. And I think I often sort of allude to that sort of kind of with players, for example. I've always completely, left field. I always, get on really well with Paul Robinson, the former, England keeper. And when he had nightmares with England, I found it so difficult because he's such a nice fella, And, but it's similar with managers and with Arsene. Lots of people say this to me, that basically now Arsene, has been eclipsed by Jose Mourinho, and Jose Mourinho is kind of, the guy that the press adore. But what I would say is that when Arsenal were really successful, you do command more headlines and coverage because you are winning trophies. And I think that when Arsene was between 96 and 2006, I would say that 10 years, he was fantastic. He would give us time. He would give us great access. He would give us back page headlines. He always had a quip. He always had time for you. It was absolutely fantastic. And make no mistake about it, he was the king of the back page for me. He was great. And frankly, that's waned slightly because Arsenal have been less successful. So, the attention focuses and switches to Ferguson or to Mourinho because their teams are winning. And, Wenger, there's no two ways about it. If you're not winning, you're going to be a bit more sore and you're going to think that the press is against you because they're being critical. Well, you can't praise a defeat. You're more likely to be critical of that. So, I do think things have evolved. And I think that Arsene has slightly stepped away from the press. I don't think his relationships with the press and his view of the press is quite as good as it was. But I do think actually if you talk to people, and you talk to press people like me, and you say, who do you respect most in the game? Then I still think Arsene Wenger still, commands so much and demands so much respect. And I think he gets that from the majority of journalists. I really do.
Oh, good stuff. Okay. The only other thing was that you think that yours is probably the 4th or 5th autobiography about him then, and he has alluded in the past to having a biography in him. I'll write about it when I've finished. Do you think he's going to do that?
Yeah, I do.
Ooh.
I do think he will.
Excellent.
I think he's genuine. When he spoke about this a lot after sort of Fergie brought his book out, and he I think felt that Fergie had something to offer and was entertaining on it. And I think he enjoys the anecdotes, actually. I mean, there's a sort of great anecdote, and we were having such a laugh about kind of, a couple of the players, including Ray Parlour, was telling tales about kind of, their boozing sessions in pre-season and what have you. And he finds it really funny, really entertaining. And I think that he will enjoy it. And I think he will kind of, really, I think he'll really sort of kind of put his heart and soul into the book. And I do think at one stage he will do it. I think he'll probably do it in France, if I'm honest, and kind of, sort of kind of do it from there with someone in France, maybe. Or maybe he might be sort of a kind of trusted sort of English journalist. But I just feel that probably he will explain himself better in his sort of almost his first language, if you like. But, yeah, well, exactly. He's such an intelligent guy, isn't he? That, but I do think he will enjoy doing it, and I do think he'll do one.
Great. Thanks, John.
Pleasure.
John, is there any aspect of the book or any story that you've heard that you think or that would surprise or shock the fans, or that you found surprising or shocking?
Well, there's one that I probably better not say what it is. There was one particular one on the finances that I didn't realise quite how difficult it was. And I think that people might be surprised, I think, just how difficult it was managing a football team and managing a budget at that time. And I think that was the thing that sort of surprised me a bit. It's been a few funny sort of things. I mean, it's interesting really, kind of about, just him losing games, how badly he takes it and things like that. But the charm in him and the kind of the personality hopefully shines through. And I think that people won't necessarily realise what a good-humoured guy is and how funny he is, and he can be entertaining. It's interesting because we often... journalists often run into him on trips in terms of like World Cups and European Championships, and it can be getting a bit feisty during the season, but he'll see us and greet us like friends. I ran into him in a hotel a while ago, and it was kind of just sort of sat down with him. It was really entertaining. He's always sort of kind of sort of up for a chat and finds it all quite amusing, I think, and sort of enjoys his little sort of world. And, I think it's quite funny to see him almost in civvies, sort of thing. And sort of, when he's relaxed, and he's always kind of, got a joke or a kind of a quip or sort of some observation about the England team and why we're so bad and why we've gone home already and what are you still doing here? England is home. It's just, it's really good. I'll tell you what, in Brazil last summer, he was so pleased. It was like a different animal. He'd won the FA Cup. The pressure had gone. And basically we kept on running into him at various airports and at various points. And he was so pleased to see us all. And I don't know whether he was putting on an act, probably was, but no, I don't think so really. He was just in really good form because you could just tell that he was enjoying life again. And the pressure was off, and I just liked that, to see that in him again, which was great to see.
I mean, one of the things that comes across when you speak about our son is his warmth and, his sense of humour, etc. One of the things that strikes me about him is his loyalty to players. He
absolutely. I agree. So, I think it's also the loyalty to coaching staff, I think, as well. I think it pains him to sort of kind of lose people that he likes and respects. It really is. I mean, there's just no way that he would dispense with people in the way that others have, I think. And I really admire and respect that. And I think sometimes he probably, feels that he probably should make a change, but actually he's loyal to them. And that's part of his makeup, part of his ethos. And I respect that.
But do you think that's cost him over the years?
Well, a lot of people will always say this about kind of how he stayed loyal to some members of staff for too long. And I just feel that, I think that you can make a case that perhaps sometimes you become complacent by remaining loyal to some people for too long, but I don't really think so. I think that perhaps certain coaches that kind of, fans will suddenly look for reasons as to why something's going wrong. And, I think that loyalty sort of kind of, is a bigger bargaining tool. I do think it's interesting, one thing that I kind of, I did obviously do quite a lot of digging and sort of try and find things out. He is evolving as a manager. And, I think his move to bring in people like Shad Forsyth, for example, and kind of a bit more preparation. And I don't mean that in a patronising way about opponents. There's definitely coming. And I do think he is evolving. He is changing as a manager. And I think to do that in your mid-60s, I think is quite something. People laugh and say, after that defeat or whatever, remember sort of a bad day on the opening day of the season and kind of think, I don't believe that. But it is true. And I think that he is sort of kind of changing in his sort of preparation for games a little bit. It can't always work. But I do think Arsenal have got that little bit more about them, I think, in the way they're set up. And I think you'll see this season through games that he will change the team a little bit more, I think, for specific games, whether that be in formation or in the actual lineup. And I do think that's part of it as well.
Well, you talk about that. Now, one of the things that sort of from a fan's perspective, I suppose, he's been at the club nearly 20 years now. How have you seen him evolve in that time? Have you seen his character change? Have you seen, has the way he deals with the players changed at all?
Yeah, I think as a sort of a character, I think he has. I think he's certainly, particularly with the press, I think he's sort of kind of less open and trusting now. I think he's found the criticism hard to take at times. And I think also with players, I think he's been sort of kind of, sometimes a bit sort of disappointed with players. And I think particularly, when he puts so much faith in young players, I think sometimes he feels like he's been let down. But I think generally, he's very much a player's man. You speak to a lot of players. Listen, there will be players who don't like him because basically it's ended badly or they've been ousted from the team or not been picked, of course. But I think if you speak to players who've been with him and sort of good times and bad, then I think they generally find, him very, very loyal, very warm, very accessible even afterwards and kind of, I think he'll sort of kind of, through that. He doesn't like people kind of almost letting out trade secrets. Yeah. I think he sort of made this one comparison. He said you wouldn't ask, kind of when he was annoyed that a dressing room story had got out, for example. He said you wouldn't ask Coca-Cola how they make Coca-Cola. It's just kind of, I just like that. It's just kind of, it's just, he just thinks, go and watch us, judges and what we do on the pitch, not what you've heard about what goes on in the dressing room. And I do think that's kind of quite a, interesting sort of kind of take on things.
Well, one last one from me, John. Any quirky, strange stories that have come to you in the book that have been told to you?
Well, I have. I'm slightly reticent to sort of kind of give them away, but
give us a taster. Just give us a taster.
I got one about. All right. Well, I'll give you a taste about kind of, sort of. There was quite an amusing one about room service. Kind of because obviously he's incredibly strict about this. I think he sort of totally gets. Someone told me a good story about kind of it just ended up with a funny punchline. He totally gets the Tottenham Arsenal rivalry and that sort of thing, and finds that all very amusing. There's quite a funny one about sort of bus trips and sort of kind of his antics and kind of his anger about the players' antics on bus trips, which is all quite amusing. And nothing upsets him more than being delayed after a European trip. I think there's a really, really nice one which I've got sort of kind of lots of people talking about Kolo Touré's trial at the club to get himself a contract and how badly that went wrong. But that was good fun, I thought.
Brilliant, John. You're a star. I'll hand you over to Danny.
Right, 2 quick questions from me. First one, where would you people rather buy the book from? Because its recommended retail price is 20 quid. I'm not going to say how much it is on a certain Amazon site. So where would you rather? Because I know when we've had lots of book people on before, they'd rather us buy it straight from their the bookmakers, because then everyone gets more money. So Amazon doesn't steal it all. So is there anywhere you'd like us to put it?
It's new to me, you see, so I'm a novice on that front.
Oh,
I just like it when people could buy it off the bookshelves, I guess, but it's at full price, obviously. But no, it's just, I just hope as many people would sort of buy it and enjoy it as much as possible.
Well, if you can, let us know the website for your publishers and a thing there, and we'll put that on our website. It's on Amazon for $13.60, which is a massive amount of money off. So I'm going to wait, and I'd rather buy from your publishers. Also, secondly, from me, has this given you the urge to write another book? And if so, what sort of book would you like to write?
No. Well, by the way, I should say at this point, actually, don't forget the launch actually at the Tollington on the 17th.
Will you be selling books there?
You can certainly buy it there.
Oh,
so there you go on the evening of the 17th. No, I enjoyed it. I found it incredibly stressful, particularly in sort of this last 2 or 3 weeks. Actually, God, blimey! And so, kind of, you have to read it and then read it again. And then kind of also spot the mistakes. And it eats so much time again. I can't see myself doing another book now.
Right, so
maybe an autobiography, maybe literally a first-person piece. Because I do think, without wanting to be dismissive or patronising towards those, I think that they must be easier. But just because basically you can go and speak to the subject, transcribe and write. And I think that would flow. So I do think there'd be sort of a few ones in mind, but I haven't got a particular target at the moment. So I just don't get enough time, if I'm honest.
So how many copies are you bringing with you to the Tollington? It's the 17th of September, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
What time?
Yeah, well, from 6:30 onwards. So as many as people would need.
Get yourself down there, people.
You got a bootload. We might have a boatload as well. all hand signed. Right. Questions from the listeners. From Stephen Neighbour, he says, "Are we a little too nice when it comes to transfers? Waiting for players to become available, other teams agitate, tap up, etc."
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think it would be naive to think that Arsenal don't play the game. Shall I say? I think it's not. I think Arsenal would generally go out and get the man that they want if they need to, I think. But I generally think that sort of Arsene Wenger is very, very particular about his transfer targets and thinks maybe sometimes a bit too much about it.
Okay, another quick question from Darryl Hawkes. Chambers or Jenkinson, who is better?
Well, that's a tricky one because I'm a big Jenkinson fan, actually. I like Chambers as well, but I think Jenkinson shouldn't be dismissed from Arsenal. I do think that it would be a shame that, because I think he's got much more pace. I think the thing is with Chambers is that he's not a right back. So to compare him to Jenkinson is wrong. I think he's a centre back and is now seen as a centre back. And I think he can still have a good career there. I also think, obviously they tried him at sort of centre, holding midfield player, at Southampton last season, which failed miserably. I think he's a good centre half, and I think he'll emerge there as a good centre half for club and country.
Okay, one from Jamal Sheriff says, "Where do you see Arsenal's long-term future now that FFP has been scrapped?" I don't know if it's been officially scrapped, but
it's been sort of toned back, hasn't it, really? Because, I just think it's so cynical, really, because basically they could see the way it was going, that the Premier League have brokered a really good deal. And so, kind of they had much more to spend. So rather than let the English clubs and the Premier League dominate, they decided, right, we'll go and scrap it so everyone can do what they want. And so that stops the English clubs running away with it. I think it's a shame. I think it's a sort of a setback, for Arsenal in terms of that. I must say, I'm slightly of the opinion that basically I do think that sort of Abramovich and City have been good for the English game in terms of bringing players over here that we'd love to see. Clearly, there's other issues that I think, kind of did it, hit Arsenal with a double whammy, particularly Wenger. That Arsenal had to scale back their budget and basically because of the stadium, just at the time when City and Chelsea were taking off, arguably, particularly Chelsea in that early period. And so I think it hit them with the double whammy. But I think Arsenal now have got the money to compete with the big guns, not necessarily the Man City of this world, but I do think that they sort of can compete with the other members of the top four and sort of kind of stay within budget. So I don't think FFP, and the scrapping of it as good as, should necessarily be seen as such a negative for Arsenal.
Okay, right. Tayyub Hamid says, do you think Arsene is actively concerned about keeping the likes of Sanchez and Ozil happy?
Well, in a way, I think like with any manager, I think you keep your best players happy by winning trophies. So I think he's certainly concerned with doing that. I think there's sometimes, I think players have sort of kind of made a case to say, look, we need new players. There's no doubt about it in my mind. That's what happened with Welbeck. And I think, to that degree, I do think that sort of probably he's reacted to some players' demands or wishes in a nice way. I don't mean necessarily there's been a revolt or anything like that. I just think that the players have said, we probably need some more, and this guy's gettable. So I do think there's probably a bit of response, but I don't think, it's necessarily should be seen as like destructive that Arsenal haven't signed a striker that suddenly, Sanchez will want to go next summer.
Okay, two more quick questions. One from Pete the Gooner, who says, do you agree that Merson that Arsenal fans are getting cheated?
Well, I do feel that Arsenal, should have spent more. My bigger one in the start throughout this window has been the holding midfield player. I think they'll live to regret that. I do. I think that sort of Coquelin's got so much potential and looks great for the future. And I think when Arsenal fans pay a lot for tickets, I do think that sort of kind of, you've got to be aware of the fact that if you're charging sky-high prices, you've got to sort of almost, in this day and age, fans do want to see big stars for that. And I think, sometimes I think, we live in a realistic sort of kind of environment and kind of, I don't think Arsenal have always sort of kind of, in recent times kind of, obeyed to what the fans who pay so much and their wishes really. And I think that's a shame with it. I'm not sure about cheated. I don't know whether back-to-back the FA Cup wins is sort of kind of cheating the fans. I think that's good. But I think I think this summer is disappointing simply because there was a platform built there. And with a couple more additions, I think Arsenal would win the league. I've been quite open about this, from early on that I've been saying that kind of in the summer that if Arsenal don't sign more than Petr Cech, who's a brilliant signing, then I don't think they'll win the league. And I think lots of people had a go at me, but that has always been my belief that they needed two more, a holding midfield player and another striker in the squad. I don't know quite what that level of striker would be. And we know that there's not many out there, but, I do think they'll live to regret that because I think that sort of City will win the title this season.
Talking about there that you were just saying about the football fan, Arsenal fans and all football fans paying more money for stuff, why has not been made more the fact that, this is my own question, that Sky Sports have lost some Premier League games, all the European games, and their prices haven't gone down, but now to watch those games we've got to pay an extra £13, £14 a month to BT, so why hasn't it been made more that Sky should drop their prices because of what they've lost? That's just something that's winding me up, because I refuse to pay for BT.
Yeah,
you don't work for either, do you?
Well, I do think a lot was made of it when BT launched, and I do think there's a price war going on, isn't there? And so I think if you barter around and broker around, threaten to leave Sky, then I think Sky will probably make you an offer. But there was a lot around when BT launched, in terms of their European coverage about how much it would cost your average fan. So I do think, a bit of fuss was made there. I think it's really interesting at the moment. It's sort of the kind of, as someone in a luxurious position who has subscribed to both, you do notice it, don't you? But, I do think the kind of, BT is evolving, and I think it's interesting what they're doing with the third pundit and then kind of the referee. But I think kind of most fans will probably say, well, actually, do we really want to be paying an extra sort of bit, and it'll be interesting to see, because next time around, I wonder, there's a lot of speculation this time whether a third competitor would come into the market, and I wonder whether next time a third will come in, and I think that will obviously annoy fans.
Right, final question. That's a good answer, by the way. I just think we should all just stop paying for all of it. Right, final question. This is for you and your colleagues. This is from RK Gunner. Says, why does Mesut Ozil get such a tough time from the media when it's so obvious he is world class? Surely England are crying out for a player in his mould.
Well, I think a lot of people say, and this, that kind of the press do give him stick. And look, I've been critical on an occasion. I thought he had a terrible game against sort of Bayern Munich away from home, and people then say, oh yeah, but he was injured, and I get that, but he should have maybe come off. And then I even got blooming stick for saying that Arsenal claimed he was injured. Well, they did claim he was injured, It's just like people think that the use of the word claim was some sort of kind of, dig at Mesut Ozil. But largely, I've been absolutely fulsome in my praise of Ozil. And what I would say is that I think back the second half of last season, I thought he was absolutely terrific. And you noticed him by his absence, I think, against Newcastle on Saturday. It does annoy me that kind of fellow professionals, because I'm sort of, see a bit more of Arsenal, that don't actually realise just how good and influential Ozil is. I think often I will sort of kind of do sort of shows or something with other people, and they say, oh yeah, but Ozil's disappointing, huh? What? Did you not see the sort of, the second half of last season when he was absolutely phenomenal? So look, I do see that there's certain people that just don't get it. But I'll be honest with you. From my perspective, he is the player that you go and see. He's that special player. He's the player that makes you fall in love with football. He's the Liam Brady. He's the dream ticket. He's the Thierry Henry. He's the Bergkamp, isn't he? And he's just lovely to watch. He's just lovely. And he's just kind of, he's the sort of the fantasy player that we all kind of, like and enjoy. And I do think he doesn't get enough. But look, there's always going to be games where I don't, I think people will disagree. I didn't think he played particularly well against Liverpool, and I marked him down as such. And then I got loads and loads of stick over that one because I think people thought he had a really, really good game. There's going to be good and bad games, but I think generally, I think Ozil has reached great levels in recent times. He's brilliant to watch for me.
Okay, Gim, but hand it back to you. Don't forget to ask John the question from Raj.
The question from Raj. Oh, yeah, Raj wants to know, next time you two have dinner, it's definitely on you then, yeah?
You're on.
Fantastic. I know you want to get away, John, because you're a very busy man and you've got a very busy day tomorrow. So now is the time to exit stage left, so to speak. So thank you so much for giving us your time tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure to ask you questions and also sit here and listen to your answers.
Oh, bless you. No, thanks so much for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really, really enjoyed it, and I hope you'll have me back again.
Oh, yeah, of
Thanks,
course.
John.
Cheers, John.
And if your publishers do mention it, I'm going to go. I found the Simon & Schuster UK website. I'm going to go and put that on our website link,
thanks.
so they'll go straight there.
That's great.
That's okay. Cheers, John.
All right, cheers then.
Cheers, John. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Take care. Right then, Danny.
Yes.
I understand that we have some ordinary Twitter questions from the listeners.
Do we? Who told you that?
You did.
Did I?
Well, I asked for them on Twitter earlier, so if you don't have them, then you've not been pulling your weight.
Well, you only said the John Cross one.
It's, to be honest with you, and it's quite surprising if you don't pull your weight, because I saw the extent of the ice cream block that you ate last night, and quite frankly, I think you're a filthy pig.
Okay, right.
Was this before or after the bath?
Oh, one would hope it was before.
There was enough DNA in that bath to build a new me.
Seriously, he said, oh no, this is my bowl, and he brought out a mixing bowl like you'd make a cake in. And the ice cream didn't even fit in that.
There's enough DNA in that bath to build a new country.
Right, here we go.
Anyway, back to the questions.
From Twitter. We'll start with you, David. Amit Tani says, just a thought, Coquelin for England. That's a question.
I hope it gets a lot better than that.
That's a little bit like the Almunia for England as well. It's a little bit mental. This is a good one that I've only just seen because it wasn't on there before. Arsenal Update says, this is from an Arsenal fan because make sure we read out the right ones. Will Wenger get the sack if Arsenal don't contend for the title, David?
Not specifically, I don't think. But I do think he has to get qualification for Europe as a minimum. I think any sign of us not competing for one of the trophies puts the question mark out there. I appreciate it's a loaded question. People won't expect me to say, yes, he'll be gone. But I don't think it's unreasonable that if we don't show signs of improvement year on year, that question is asked of him.
Being a fan of many years, do you think Arsenal fans are too quick to remember the good times of about 3 months ago where we won back-to-back FA Cups, back-to-back Charity Shields, and we won our own trophy?
I do think it's fair to say that there's a generation now of Arsenal fans who haven't been through what we went through in the mid-70s and mid-80s when we could very easily have got relegated, and so don't have that comparison to make. Some of us have been around too long and long enough to see Arsenal when they were really, really crap.
And look at the season 94-95, people. We were we were only 3 points off the relegation spot.
Yeah.
It was horrendous. Any views on any of them, Mr. Davis? Coquelin for England?
Yeah.
Or Wales?
Sign him up. No thanks.
How are Wales getting on?
We got Joe Allen. Oh, we've been cheated, yeah, boys. A definite penalty not given.
Losing that.
No, 0-0, but a perfectly good goal not allowed. I'm being funny, we've been bent over a table. It's not good.
I heard it was Robson Howe Carnu. Oh, I'm going to get that wrong.
Robson Carnu.
Are they playing at the Millennium tonight? I could drive down and put me boots
it's away
on.
in Cyprus. It's away in Cyprus.
Even better, I'll get the plane.
Not being funny, they need somebody to carry the water. Crack on, son. No, I can't see him getting sacked, but, you know, stranger things have happened as well, haven't they? You know, I thought we'd sign an outfield player this summer. We haven't. So, what do I know?
Oh, dear. This is a nice one from Zlato Markovic. How the hell do I get that right? He says, just discovered your wonderful podcast and got a few questions. Is it possible to listen live? If not, when will it be up? See, some people like us.
That's lovely.
They haven't got to know us yet, have they?
Here's one from the real Josh Dorr, who made his debut on the transfer deadline, and he was very good. And I think he's going to be getting a slot on the radio show, not permanently, just the once, unless he's got lots of money.
Don't get his hopes up.
No, he says you can have this one, Gimli. Has the team developed a little lopsidedly? So this season we have Bellerin a year ahead of his schedule, and Santi perhaps holding on an extra year. That is leaving the team to be set up unbalanced.
No, I don't think so.
Simple yes or no?
No.
Go on.
No, I don't think that you can account for setting up a lopsided team. At the end of the day, he's going to put out the best 11 that he sees is going to go out and win that game. So, you know, if Bellerin is ahead of Debussy, surely one of the things we prided ourselves on as Arsenal fans is that a youngster can come in and take a spot off someone that's, you know, a season regular. So, you know, no, I don't think. I think at that given time, you've got to play your best 11, what's in front of you. And you know what? If a 19, 20-year-old is better than a 29, 30-year-old in that position, then you play what's best.
Would you like an update on the Bergkamp Wonderland Fantasy Football League top 3?
I'm not even part of it, so go on.
In first place, Paramahesh Sarang. Hey, Diabid 11, second place Matt Dahlstrom, whose name is familiar, Des Moines Gooners, and in third place Ahmed Kayed with AMK 121. What do you think to that?
Fantastic.
Well, there you go. Okay, go back to Twitter and we'll get another question. We read the Stephen Neighbour one. No, they've read that one. There's someone here whose questions I said I wasn't going to ask because he's a bit of a tit.
Oh, go on, answer it anyway.
Now he knows who I'm going to call a tit.
Because now we can't say his
Oh, no,
name.
I won't ask his question. I'll ask a question from somebody else. I found this one.
I was going to say his name then. I was going to say...
Oh, I found one from someone called...
I can't do it.
Sacha Wildy 11. He says, if no one else has already asked it, can you ask John Cross why there has been no explanation to not even signing a short-term striker to cover Welbeck after they knew about Welbeck's condition during the window and say it's from everyone, not me.
Well, in all fairness, I think you've asked that question about 10 minutes too late. But Sasha, I'd be more than happy to let Davies answer that for you.
I don't know.
That's not really helping, is it? What do you mean you don't know? You've got an opinion on stuff you don't even know about.
Okay, look, let's put it like this, you know. Maybe they couldn't find the quality striker they wanted. I don't know. But, you know, you demand things of the club all they want. They're going to do what they see fit. Whether you agree with it or not, that's your problem, not mine.
Thing is,
you want me to have a stab at it?
Yeah,
well, I'd like to have a stab at Gimli.
Yeah. No, I think there's two things. I think one is they had their mind set on a top-notch centre-forward, top dollar, and if they go in and sign another one who's going to join the queue of Giroud, of Theo, and let's not forget Joel Campbell, and Danny will be back by Christmas. I think that's taking away money that could be spent on a top-notch player in January if he becomes available. So I think that would be your answer. And I think we're kind of also ignoring the Joel Campbell thing, although he's only going to be a third choice. Don't say thank goodness, but he is going to be a third choice, and that gives us an option should anything happen to both Theo and Olivier Giroud.
Talking about what would happen to them, this is from Carl, _London_guy. This is 2 bits. Oh, well done, Kitten. Not yet. It's not your time, my friend.
I'm killing it softly.
When, not if, Coquelin or Giroud get injured or suspended, are the current crop good enough to take us forward in the big games? You can have that one, David, as well.
You'd have to be kind of sceptical more if we were missing Coquelin in the big games, because I don't see Mikel Arteta coming in and doing that job as well. I don't see Mathieu Flamini coming in and doing that job as well. If you're talking the big games, and the question's clearly based on the fact that we went to Manchester City last year with Coquelin in absolutely outstanding form and finally got a result away from home against one of our rivals. I don't see anybody else in the squad doing that.
On a completely non-football based thing, has anyone ever told you sound like Lionel Fanthorpe?
Who?
He's the Reverend Robert Lionel Fanthorpe, British poet and entertainer, and various times worked as a dental technician.
You sound like a lot. Dirk Pickwick.
No, you ever heard of him? No, am I the only one?
I have no idea who you're on about.
I did get compared to John Arlott once, which I found particularly complimentary.
Danny, in the nicest possible way, David.
Yeah.
Right, David's older than you, and not even he knows who you're talking about.
How dare you, sir? I have been besmirched. Okay, right. Carl sent in lots of questions. I think it's only fair we ask one per person. No, that's nothing interesting. Do Arsenal care more about corporate values over the football values and the supporters? From J. Parmar Davis. Notice I said Davis and not Davies.
Yeah, that's first.
I know. It's only taken me 3 years.
I thought it was Davies.
No, Welsh say it Davis.
Honestly, I suppose you have to say they do look at the bottom line ahead of the fans. You know, you saw the protest last year for match day going fans where they were protesting against prices, etc. And you know, the club haven't taken much notice of that. You do pay top dollar, and they're not delivering on the big name front this summer. I know where you could. There's a flip side argument to say, okay, the player wasn't available, couldn't get it, fair enough. But to bring no outfield players in, when strengthening the squad isn't just about buying world class, it's about strengthening your base as well. And your Artetas, your Flamleys, your Rosicki's, etc. are over 30 years of age. You know, it is a concern. But, Wales just go on 1-0 up. Come on. Have that, Gareth Bale. Sorry, guys.
It's always him. You're a one-man team.
No. Hey, there's level.
They've got Neville Southwell in goal. How dare you?
but again, they have to worry about that stuff to be able to compete with the big boys, you know. So you have to worry about that stuff. But you know, the matchday experience, a lot of people don't find it the greatest experience, you know, with stewards, etc., and with the prices you pay there. And I think it's easy for foreign fans to say, oh, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But that's being disrespectful to the fans who pay their money week in, week out to go. The club should make more of an effort in that way.
No,
I've seen people be dismissive of it, and I think that's disgraceful to be dismissive of it, just as it's disgraceful of local fans to dismiss foreign fans. But the club should make more of an effort.
I do think, Jace, to back up your point as well, the club could actually answer the question for you. We're off the back of a bad transfer window that I don't think anyone can consider it as a success. I'm not knocking Petr Cech. Fantastic signing, absolutely world-class goalkeeper. But unfortunately, not enough. If they cared more about the fans, they would hold their hands up and say, for whatever reason it was, whether there was no one available, if you would believe John tonight, he said quite openly on this podcast that Cavani was available, and chances are they could have got him, but 50 million for a 28-year-old, maybe we look the other way. So these players are available, but they didn't get them. So in that sense, I think now it's down to the club to go, okay, we've had a bad transfer window, we've messed up for whatever reason, give the 3% back to the fans in ticket prices. Do they need that money, Jace?
I heard some mention that, okay, on the transfer deadline day pods. And whereas it's a wonderful sentiment, okay, it's a lovely sentiment to make, it's never going to happen, okay? Never in a month of Sundays, no organisation in the world would do that, okay? Nobody would, okay?
Then you've just answered the question, haven't you?
Yeah, but that's life nowadays, Don't get me wrong, that's life, right?
I wrote a song about that.
No, I remember. Was it Wigan-Liverpool? And Liverpool thrashed Wigan, and they gave all the travelling fans back their money.
Okay, that's the travelling fans.
It's sentiment, yeah. Jace. You can't... Merson, and John Cross said it tonight, he was absolutely spot on. The people that go to the games, that pay their money to see the world-class players, I know we have Sanchez, I know we have Ozil, but we failed.
Yeah, I agree with you, but they're not going to give every single season ticket 3% money back. They're not going to do it.
There's no reason why they can't.
There's no reason why they can't, but they won't, okay? No offence, it's pie in the sky. Okay, it won't happen. It's a moot point. It's a moot point. Let's move on.
Okay, Gimli, got a question here for you, which I didn't want to ask while John was here. From friend of the pod, Mark King. Does your book come with a free set of crayons?
And I read what the answer was, and to deflect off of John, I'll say that yes, it did, and I ate them.
I reckon if we'd have asked that to John, he'd have come up with a very funny and quippy answer.
I think so.
Okay, this is a one for David, because he's been an Arsenal fan for many moons. Best youth product to never make it at Arsenal, destined for the top but failed to make it. We can all have a go, but David can go first.
Oh my God, you wouldn't even have heard of the one that would be me. I got to put this into context. I was 9 years old when he came into the side, played I think 4 or 5 games, and I thought he was a wonderful. He scored at least once, I know. Little lad, midfield player by the name of Mickey Boot.
I do know. Didn't he end up in Australia?
Or South Africa. South Africa,
hey!
I think.
Odd story about that. I was doing my Arsenal player careers, and I found a forum in South Africa, and I asked about it, and his son, or a friend of his son, said his dad is alive and well and living in, I thought it was Australia, but South Africa.
His brother Stevie Shue had an excellent career at Carlisle, I'm told.
Mickey Boots. Well,
I
there you
see
go.
what you did there.
Thank you very much. I'm here all night.
If I go to my website, I think he was one of the players. There you go, Mickey Boot, and he was... Michael Colin Boot, born the 17th of December 1947, and he was last seen playing for Phoenix in Australia.
Ah, it was Australia.
Yeah. I mean, that's what, not saying, I don't know if he lives there now, but he left Arsenal to go to Port Elizabeth City in South Africa.
Ah, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and he played, just trying to find, there you go, 1966-67, oh, giving you age away there, sorry. 5 games, 2 goals, 2 goals in the League Cup.
Yeah.
There you go.
Good
I'm not going to tell you what website that is because it's a secret.
Good little player to a 9 and 10-year-old, anyway.
Hey, right then, Gimli, go on. Amaze us with your knowledge. Are you going to say Ian Wright?
No,
John Lukic.
I thought Fran Merida was a hell of a talent. I thought he could have gone on and been a good player for us. But we've let loads go. I mean, even you look up to this season, and we've got, is it Benik Afobe? I mean, didn't the club that he's currently at turn down a 10 million bid for him from, was it Norwich?
I think it was them or Palace.
So, I mean, if you turn around to Arsenal and said at the time that they'd let him go, that a year or so down the line he'd be worth 10 million quid, I think that they would have thought twice about selling him. But I don't know. I think there's lots of players out there that we've let go that have had decent careers, should I say, but championship teams. But no, I'll go Fran Merida from my knowledge.
Oh, there you go, Jace.
Well, other than Kim Karlstrom, it's Andy Cole, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that's a fucking hell of a shout.
You know, that
sold into Bristol City for $500,000.
Yeah,
I think.
you know, but again, there's reasons he didn't make it with us. You know, it's one of those things that it's not always going to work out that perfectly if you keep him, is it?
Documentary on ITV4 about Andy Cole, and I watched it the other day, and he says about his time at Arsenal, and I think that at that particular time in his career, he maybe didn't take his football as seriously as he should have, and he slipped under the radar. It was only when maybe he got a little bit older and a little bit more mature that he actually developed into the footballer that he could have been, or was, so should I say.
Yeah, but it's one of those things, it does click at different times for different players. They're not all a Cesc Fabregas ready to go at a young age, you know. It's different for different characters. You know, these are human beings. So, yeah, it's a shame, but there you go.
I'm going to pick Oleg Lushny, the horse, because he's a mental case. I was going to pick a Brazilian.
Silvinho.
No, he's... where was it? I've got it. I'm looking at my site.
Didn't Silvinho go on to play for Barcelona, though?
Yeah, we sold him to Celta Vigo. Or loaned him.
He won the Champions League with them against us, didn't he?
And they say players don't ever go on to achieve anything after they leave Arsenal.
That's very true. Right, should we do one more question?
One more question, and then we'll do shout-outs, and then that's it.
Okay. Here we go. This one we can all ask. Another one from RK Gunner. 2 good questions from you there, Mr. RK, he or she. I don't know. Who am I to say? If John was manager, I'll change that to if you 4, not John, were manager of Arsenal, which 2 players would you have added to our squad this transfer window gone? But they have to be realistic ones. Put your hand up if you want to go first.
I'll go first.
Fair enough.
Cavani and Schneidlin, thank you very much and good night. League title.
David or Jace?
Go on, Dave, you go first.
I'd go with Cavani.
David,
he's been taken over by a Dalek.
Jesus Christ!
What the hell's going on there?
He's just gone full Dalek.
Dave, you've gone Darth Vader.
Probably.
Say, David, say exterminate. Yes.
Oh dear, that's terrible. Unplug your headphones, David, and then plug them back in again.
Well, boys, I think we've reached...
How's that?
No, that's terrible. If you say anything, it sounds horrible.
Tell you what, I'll disappear and say goodbye and thank you.
Oh, cheers, David. We'll have you back on again sooner rather than later.
Thank you, David. It's been a
Thanks,
pleasure.
boys.
Just one more time.
Bye.
Exterminate one more time.
Exterminate.
Oh, turn a disastrous situation into a winner.
Where is the doctor? Goodbye.
Bye.
Oh, that was brilliant.
Oh, excellent. Right, I would pick. I think I can't. You can't go far wrong with Schneidlin because you look how knackered Southampton are without having Schneidlin in that hole. And then also, I would probably go for Royce because we need someone who can play left-footed, who can play on the left.
Was he gettable though, Danny? Was Royce gettable?
If you offered them 200 million and him 200 grand a week, he'd have walked over here, sausage in hand.
Oh, fair play, Bratwurst.
Va.
Right,
we're dropping the guests. We've only done the 3 of us.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Danny. It started off so positively, and now we're left with Davis.
Charming.
He's called you by the right name, though, James.
I can't even swear, though, on this one. This is
No,
ridiculous.
you can't.
I'd tell you what I'd go for. I'd have gone for Lars Bender. Schneidlin, perfectly good option. Would have loved him. all of a sudden, as soon as he went to United, everybody's slagging him off, and I just thought that was petty and pathetic.
But then we'd have too many Germans, and our sausage bill will go through the roof.
It doesn't matter, does it? And up front, I really don't know who'd have made a big difference up front, whether it could have gone Lacazette or Cavani. It doesn't really matter, but it's just very disappointing, isn't it?
We will try. We did set out this podcast tonight not to try and dwell on deadline day because, we did all that on Tuesday, and we've got the scars on our arms to prove that it was a bad day.
Yeah, but look, you can't have a game like the Newcastle game, which was wholly frustrating. I mean, I've watched that game twice now, and I still
won.
Yeah, but
6
all
points.
that matters.
Look on the bright side, though. That's 6 points.
Still
more than Chelsea.
Yep.
It's still painful, lads. I mean, it's one of those where, yeah, great, 3 points in the bag, happy days, okay, but we didn't cover ourselves in glory, did we?
Well, which is worse then, Jace? Points from 2 own goals or points from 2 offside goals and goals being disallowed? There you go. Because Liverpool, they shouldn't have had... Their goal was offside against Bournemouth, and Bournemouth's goal wasn't, and our goal against them wasn't offside. Which would you be most disappointed about? Because me, it's been a Liverpool fan.
To be fair, being a Liverpool fan, I'd probably have hung myself by now, but there you go.
And we probably would all chipped in. If there's any Liverpool fans listening, we'll chip in for a bit of rope.
Hey, Jace, you'll never walk alone. Or either that, or no, I should have said to him, the joke would have been, you'll never hang alone. Because I'd have been with you.
But we don't condone that. If you're feeling a bit down, we'll just give someone a call and we'll come out and give you all a hug.
Call the Samaritans, chin up, it's okay. It will get better in the morning. You're not meant to be disrespectful towards that. But no, I mean...
And remember, there's always the January transfer window where he'll probably fuck it up again.
Yeah, there is that to look forward to. And how many pods are we doing that day, Gim? 20? One every 5 minutes. Nothing, bye.
Oh, did you tell people what the plan was for the last podcast? I was just going to put the laptop in the window and just film me cutting the grass. That was it.
Oh, dear. Right, move this love boat on.
Right, shout-outs then, and seeing as there's only 2 of you, I'll go first, and I'd like to shout out personally everybody that participated and listened to our Deadline Day podcast marathon on Tuesday. It was a fantastic day, bar the non-show of faces at the Emirates, but it just shows you that you can have good Arsenal debate, and you haven't got to, I would say, slag each other off. It just shows that we can have respectful debate with each other. And I think maybe that there's some people on Twitter that, should maybe listen to that and discover how a respectful debate is undertaken. But, Danny, over to you next.
Yeah, I can't go far wrong with what you said there. It's lovely. I think we had 18, possibly 19 people join us for the transfer deadline day that aren't ABW people, and that's thank you very much to each and every one of them. But my shout's going to go to Mr. Raj Patel, which is Raj Patel 1809, which means it's his birthday soon. That's not the year he was born. For sorting us out, John Cross, and he's at home now in tears, a blubbering mess because he couldn't make it because he double booked himself. And also, our Jeff has been on Footballtastically Arsenal, and he did that pod, and so that's out now, so go and have a listen to that after you listen to ours.
Yes.
Because they're good eggs.
But I can also announce to you that we have a bloggers special next week, and then the podcast after, hopefully, touch wood, should be Darren Berry, Andrew Fife, and the G-Man himself, Mr. Jeff Arsenal. He had just about recovered from the batters and bruises of Deadline Day. Now, Jace...
What are you going to say, Boyd Hilton?
Right. Yeah, to be honest, I was going to give Jeff a shout because the poor bugger took some stick over the last few days, and it's a bit harsh.
If he would have been a dog, the RSPCA would be on our back.
Tell me about it. But my shout's to the other Jeff at Hollefriend, HOLLEFREUND.
You're reading that.
I miss you, bro. I miss you. Yeah, of course I'm reading it.
What's that all about?
I love
Hello, OG.
Oh, Terence, I think I'm going to fart!
and to Peter Kennelly at Kennelly.
Oh, in Australia.
Peter. Yeah. he took the mickey earlier on with them Wales being above England in the rankings, saying that you'd now never hear the end of it, so I have to fulfil that obligation towards him.
Wales have won.
Yeah, 1-0. Have that. Have that. Go on.
Who scored, Jace?
Gareth Bale.
Who? Never heard of him. He's an Arsenal fan,
He's lovely. Yeah, he is. I tell you what, boys, we're going to France. Look out, France, here we come. Oh, it's going to be nasty.
Should we let him have his moment?
Yeah, let him have his moment.
Is he done?
Yeah, I'm done.
You done?
I'm done.
Excellent.
So
Right.
all that's left then is really to thank my guest, but John's gone, David's gone, and you two have to be here, so bollocks to it. So that was a Bergkamp Wonderland podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and keep it Arsenal.
I am.
Good
I
night.
am a Dalek. I am a Dalek.
Nanny, you cheeky Dalek.
You do realise we've got to call this something like quite good now, because it can't just be called I'm a Dalek.
You've got to go with the Doctor Who theme tune at the end, haven't you? You know?
No. There's something far better that's going at the end of this. Happy by
Oh, the music.
yes,
Pharrell Williams.
Yeah.
that's the one. I think that's what we go for.
Tell you what, boys, John Cross was top notch.
What are we going to call this show then? John Cross
No,
has a book.
it should be something. It's something. We're not cross at all, or something like that. Play on words, as in we're not angry, cross.
The transfer window made us get cross.
That's a bloody long
Yeah,
time.
That's fucking brilliant, though, Jace. Hats off.
No transfers made us cross. And oh shit! Okay, let's playing it, boys, playing it.
Oh. Are we shitballing?
You're spitballing, yeah, we're spitballing.
Oh, I thought it was shitballing.
Noughts and crosses.
No.
Well, no, that's quite good. That's quite good. I like noughts and crosses.
Nought transfer crosses.
Naught transfers and Mr. Cross.
But then again, that goes along. That's about the same as the first one Jason said. And I thought the first one he came out with was superb.
Oh, look at you being all special. Teacher's pet. Are we crossover transfers? John isn't.
John's not cross.
No, or you should put, are you cross? Question mark. Something like that.
Yeah, TFRS.
What the fuck does that mean?
Transfers, TFRS.
We're not kids. This isn't text talk.
I agree
LOL.
with you, blood, okay, but, you know, I said blood there, but, you know, you've got to get it in somehow.
TTYL.
John Cross has a book.
No.
2 books.
Cross, not us.
I don't see why
No,
we
you should
not
put,
write books.
we're not cross. Something like that.
But John is.
No transfers, we're cross. You must have to get that in.
No. We're not cross, but here's John. Or something like that. It's like so very nearly there, but not quite it.
Yeah.
It's got to be short, but it's the sentiment is there, but it's got to be snappy.
John's not there. John's not cross, are you? Are we? Are they?
Hot cross buns.
He'll leave his arse out of this. Hot cross transfers.
Got it. Disappointed, not cross.
Yes. That's what you got. Although, the only way you can look at that is people would look at it and go, oh, fuck me, that's going to be an hour and a half of misery.
It is, because we're sad. Not
No,
happy.
see, that's the thing. When I wrote tonight's podcast, I wanted not a lot of emphasis on transfers, because that's miserable. But why do people, at the end of the day, Tuesday was Tuesday. We're a couple of days on since then. You can't fucking change what's going to happen, so we go with what we got. So let's talk about what we got and not what we could have had.
John crossed, ... Giroud missed.
No.
Theo puts it wide.
Well, no, because fucking Walcott had that glaring opportunity. You should put John crossed, Theo missed. That's the podcast name.
Ox can't cross, John can.
No, I'd still go with.
I like that. John crossed. John CROSS apostrophe D. So it's John crossed.
Yeah.
Theo missed.
Yeah, that's it. Because
Jace, that's got winner written all over it.
Yeah, that's fucking winner chicken dinner.
He's gone quiet.
What have you gone with?
Hold on, I'll type it in the window.
Go on.
There you go.
Let's have a look. John crossed, Theo missed. I like that.
Hey!
That's a winner.
Oh, no.
Oh, here we go. No, we've picked it.
Arsene missed.
Oh.
Arsene missed.
Arsenal missed.
Oh, yeah. Arsenal missed.
Arsenal missed out.
Arsenal missed. John Cross.
John crossed. Arsenal missed.
John crossed and Arsenal missed.
Yeah. Okay.
How about that? Look, read that.
Yeah. I like that.
Dot out.
Yeah. We'll go for that. Yeah. Happy with that.
Yeah.
And the end music has still got to be happy for many different reasons.
Because we are happy.
Yeah.